Season 6 of Eternal Return is finally here, and with a lot of changes that happened, including the removal of some mechanics, the gameplay guide a few months ago has become slightly outdated. So with marketing finally starting to make some push over into the international scene, I thought this would be a great time to update the guide to help newcomers who have just heard about the game. Now keep in mind that this only covers the basic fundamentals to help you understand the game, so not everything will be covered. With that being said, subscribe for more years content, check out all my socials in the description below, and I hope you enjoy the video. In other BRs, you will usually be sticking with your team right at the start of the game, looting anything you can to use. As the game goes on, a circle slowly closes in on a portion of the map, so players have to move with the circle, eliminating other players until there is only one team left standing. Now in Eternal Return, it's very different. In the pre-game lobby, you will have a loadout selected for you as well as a route. Once you get into game, you will spawn into the first zone of your route, and from there you will have to move from zone to zone, searching materials in those zones to craft your specified loadout. Because of this, it is actually very common for your team to be separated at the start of the game until you finish building your loadout, which only takes about a couple minutes. If you think about griefing early game or are worried about being griefed, don't be, as people do so little damage without their loadout that you can just completely ignore them, and in the chance that you do die, you will revive for free so long as your other teammates don't die as well, so they are just wasting their time. As the game goes on, zones will start getting highlighted yellow, and then on a day or a night change, those highlighted zones will turn red. If you're caught in a red zone, a timer at the top of your screen will start slowly counting down, and if it hits 0, the timer doesn't refresh once leaving, but you can gain more timer from eliminating players or androids such as Alpha or Omega. As more and more zones close, more players will be forced in smaller areas of the map, eliminating whoever they can until there is one team left standing. This is just an overview on how the game flows, but we will be talking about things like how looting works, and how to get stronger as the game goes on, as well as the endgame or the final zones. So let's get into looting first. When you spawn into your first zone, you will be greeted by a small number of lootable objects that are slightly glowing blue scattered around you. These are loot clusters, and there is one for each spawn in each zone. Loot clusters are very important to understand, as by following them, they give you a predetermined amount of materials. Now if we look at the right side of our screen above our minimap, we will see a list of materials we need to loot from the zone before we should move on to the next. A good rule of thumb to follow is if each material you need to find is 2 or less, you will always find it in an unlooted cluster. In this clip I have a bunch of materials that I need to loot, so let's see what happens when I follow my cluster. So by simply following my loot cluster, I was able to loot all the materials I need from this zone in a short amount of time, so now I can move on to the next zone. Most builds also require you to collect things from off the ground or off of animals. Now for rocks and branches, you can collect from any zone, and for leather, you can get from any animal, but flowers are actually zone specific. So if you have any flowers required in your build, be sure to keep an eye on your materials list when you enter a new zone. If you are missing some materials after looting a cluster, or you finished your route but still are missing one piece for your loadout, then you should consider spending some credits to join in your remaining materials. Pressing V will open a window called the V-pad. This window will give you all the vital information for your character and build, so we will be coming back to this window every so often, but first we would want to look at the bottom. This will list off any materials that you have missed in your previous zones, and right-clicking them will spend credits to draw those materials right into your inventory. Some builds actually use this feature to shorten the route, so if you are missing something despite finding all of your materials on your route, check your V-pad as the build may require you to drone something in. If you feel like you missed too many materials, you can hold the Alt key with the map open to view where the materials are if you want to improvise to save credits. As you play more and more, you will find ways to save time along your route, so if you feel like you're being too slow at the start, don't worry, keep practicing and you will notice small things to do to save time, such as crafting while looting, or using mobility skills instead of walking. Now that you have finished your loadout, the next question arises on what to do next. You could group with your team and start hunting down other players, but what else is there to do besides to survive? In Eternal Return, there are 3 ways for you to strengthen yourself to make sure you become the last surviving team on the island. Let's start with food. Now food is pretty easy to understand, but is still very essential to talk about. Basically, food items allow you to restore health over time, and drinks allow you to restore stamina over time in combat or if you have no time to rest. However, instead of chomping your starting bread and water, or just slamming bread with tears, consider taking food to a campfire. If you open up your map, you will find these campfire icons all over Lumia Island, and if you take any uncooked food and drinks over to that campfire, you'll be able to cook them for a significant boost in value. You might also find rare purple tier food from looting, fishing, or collecting that can also be cooked into legendary tier food as well. There are also other small food and drink recipes for you to find if you want to take the time to learn them. However, they aren't necessary, and are only there for the option to explore it. Or you could do what the rest of us do and grab raw meat from an animal and slam steaks on the campfire. The second way to get stronger is through masteries. Masteries are a more passive mechanic that allows you to get stronger throughout the match. If you open up the V-pad and look at the top left, that is where you can view your masteries. Now there is a lot there, but they are very easy to understand. Basically, anything you do throughout the match will level up one of your masteries, which in turn will give you EXP to your total level. From looting of boxes, crafting, killing animals, hitting players, or even just walking around. However, there is one mastery we're going to look at further, and that is Weapon Mastery. Now leveling Weapon Mastery does two things. One is that it gives you more damage, but the other is that by meeting certain thresholds, it will also level up your weapon skill. Weapon skills are a type of skill that changes depending on the type of weapon you are using. You gain access to these weapon skills starting at Weapon Mastery 5, but you can upgrade it further at Weapon Mastery 10 and 15. This could also be viewed at the V-pad. And that's basically it about masteries. With that, let's talk about the final way to get stronger. Transitions are the most important way to power up an Eternal Return. If you have noticed that after you have finished your build, on the top right it will be replaced with gold or red items. Gold equipment being legendary can be crafted using 4 types of rare materials, being Tree of Life, Meteorite, Mithril, and a Force Core. Red equipment being mythic can only be crafted with a VF blood sample, which you can only obtain near the end of the game. Starting with legendary equipment, there are 3 main ways to acquire the materials. The first way is to contest them as objectives starting on each day or night cycle. Tree of Life and Meteorite will spawn as they are, and you'll have to spend time to collect them. While Mithril and Force Core, you have to defeat an elite monster called Androids. Mithril will drop from an Alpha Android, and Force Core will drop from an Omega Android. You can also contest a purple loot box that drops at the same time to receive a random material out of these 4. Now don't worry about needing to memorize when these will spawn, as a notification will pop up 1 minute before a cycle change to let you know what's spawning, and you can locate them by looking for their icons on the map. The second way is by killing wolves or bears, which will have a chance to drop a random material. Wolves will only drop Tree of Life and Meteorite, while bears will have a chance to drop up to a Force Core. It's also important to note that the first spawn of bears and wolves cannot drop rare materials. The final way to get these materials is by purchasing them through a kiosk. You can locate a kiosk by finding a credit icon on your map. Accessing these kiosks will allow you to spend credits to buy any of these rare materials. You can also spend credits here to revive teammates who have died past day 3, but unfortunately you can no longer revive them here at day 5. Tactical skill modules are also an item that you can buy at a kiosk, and what it does is that it upgrades your tactical skill. So if your tactical skill is something that supports your whole team, consider grabbing a module instead. Now let's talk about mythics. Mythic items are the top rarity of equipment that you can get in Eternal Return. To get this rarity, you need to get a special material called VF Blood Sample. Now there are only 2 ways you can get a VF Blood Sample, which is spending credits at a kiosk or killing an android called Wiccaline. Will also provide a powerful damage over time buff. Red boxes will also appear, but instead of giving you a blood sample, will only give you 1 mythic item of your choosing off of a list. So these are the 3 ways of getting stronger in Eternal Return. Now I know this is a lot of information, but there is a simple gameplay loop which uses all 3 of these. Before an objective spawns, you use the downtime to farm animals, hunt players, and cook food, and then plan out which objective you wish to contest, or if you want to contest at all, and then rinse and repeat. This gameplay loop is the foundation of the entire game, and to be honest, this is more than enough information for you to understand Eternal Return. However, there is one more thing I want to talk about, and that is endgame. At the start of the 5th night, only 3 zones will be left on Lumia Island, and on day 6, the middle zone will turn red. This separates teams into 2 zones in which they have to fight over a small safe zone. Once there are only 1 team in each zone, the middle zone will open back up, in which they have to fight over another small safe zone for a grand finale. And this has been the basic gameplay guide for Eternal Return. Now I haven't told you everything there is to know about the game. For example, I didn't tell you about the little robot Lumi, secret labs, weather, escaping, or even gadgets. I will leave those for you to discover for yourself, and also because there's always new content every season, so I want this video to stay relevant as long as possible. With that being said, I want to thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you want to see more guides, and give this a like if this has helped you understand how Eternal Return goes. I also want to shout out Ameericles for editing this video, and his socials will be linked down in the description below. I also stream, so if you have any questions, feel free to check me out. I stream every day at 3 PM PST at twitch.tv/Esther with 2 R's at the end. It would be very nice to see you there. This has been Esther, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.